Good morning, everybody. I'm live here from the birdhouse. We are in early April now, and it feels like it out there. The birds are starting to sing. Just this morning, I noticed the sparrows are starting to grab the nesting material that I have outside for the birds. So it is time to start getting ready for nesting season. So I pulled some photos from around this time last year of different things you can do around your yard to get ready for nesting season. As always, we want to know what kind of things you're seeing or hearing. Looks like Mary Beth has already put in a comment that says, "So nice to hear the birds before dawn again," means spring is coming. And yes, they are definitely singing quite a bit. So definitely in the comments, put what your kind of birds you're seeing, what kind of birds you're hearing. If you have questions, you can throw those in there too. If you are in the Western New York area at all, you know that we are getting very ready for the full solar eclipse that is coming up on Monday, the 8th. We're less than a week away. We still have plenty of eclipse glasses in stock if you're looking for some. They're $1.95. We have 4 packs for $6.95, which is the cheapest way to go to get them. So we still have plenty in stock. You don't have to scramble all around town to try to find some. We definitely still have some. So we have those if you are looking for them. I thought I would throw that in there as well, but let's get started. First question that we are getting, and we will continue to get, when are the Orioles coming? People are getting ready for spring and pulling out some of their spring bird feeders like Oriole feeders and hummingbird feeders. And that's a good thing to do this time of the year anyway. Pull them out, make sure nothing is broken, make sure you have all the pieces and parts, especially with Oriole feeders that have different cups and things associated with them. The Orioles, though, we still have some time. We still have almost a month until they'll be here. So even though we've had a mild winter, and birds in general are slowly making their way back up north, there's really no way for them to expedite that migration process. And although year after year, in general, the trend is that they are coming back earlier, they're not coming back significantly earlier. So you don't have to expect them, at least here in the Western New York area, you can expect them to come back very late April, early May is when they really start flowing in. So we always suggest having your Oriole feeders out around that last week of April is good. You want to put your feeders out before you see any. That's kind of key to getting them in the early spring. So we'll keep you updated with their migration. I was checking their maps yesterday. There's really nothing close by. So Orioles, same with hummingbirds. You've got some time before they'll be back in the area. Hummingbirds are usually about a week later than the Orioles. So they're early May, and then around mid-May, like around Mother's Day, is when they really start to come in some larger numbers. So you can look forward to those in about a month or so. It'll be a very exciting time of spring migration. But that being said, we are getting some migrants. We'll have some birds migrating into this area this month, and we'll start to see some reports of those any day now, and I'll show you some of these early migrants as we go. One exciting thing that is happening here in Rochester, and I'm sure other places around the country, are birds of prey are nesting and sitting on eggs. This is a still from the peregrine falcons we have nesting here in downtown Rochester. And just last week, I believe it was, the female laid her 4th egg. So they are actively nesting, incubating those eggs, and in about a month or so, they'll hatch. So we've got our peregrine falcons that are nesting here in the city of Rochester on what's called our Times Square building, and there's a camera on them all the time. You can always tune in to see the peregrine falcons. You can look them up on YouTube, just look up Rochester peregrine falcons, or if you go online, the site is ourfalconcam.com. So R as in Rochester, ourfalconcam.com. So we've got that going on here in the city as well. But it's getting to be nesting season. So if you have any kind of nesting material, now is the time to start putting that out. We have different types of nesting material, nesting balls here at the store. So if you haven't put out your nesting material, now is absolutely the time to do so. If you have a pet, you can always put out pet fur. Birds will use that to build their nests. You just want to stay away from dryer lint. It's not known if detergents that are used in laundry, if they can harm the birds in any way. So you just don't want to use dryer lint, but go ahead and use any kind of natural cotton you might have. Pet fur is totally fine, and birds will use that to either build their nest or line their nest. So got that going on this time of the year. And birds are starting to look at places to nest. Over the weekend, I saw a chickadee going in and out of a wren house just like this. So they are definitely looking for places to nest. So if you haven't cleaned out your birdhouses, now is absolutely the time to do so. If you haven't put your houses out, absolutely you want to do that. As far as birdhouses go, most birds like a stationary house, but other birds don't mind one that swings around a bit in the wind. Wrens being one of them, chickadees are another. So this is an example here of a wren house that wrens and chickadees will both use. So that's an easy way to attract birds to your yard. Just put out one of these hanging houses, and you never know what might start looking inside to nest. So we still have a little bit of time before they at least wrens and chickadees start the nest building process, but it's coming up soon. So make sure to get those houses out. And same with bluebirds. So bluebirds are definitely checking out nesting sites. They are one of our earliest nesting songbirds. So they'll start nesting any day now. And you can tell that they're nesting when you can see the female with some nesting material in her bill. And here is an example of that. This is from last year. Bob sent in this picture of a female bluebird with some nesting material in her beak. So be on the lookout for this kind of behavior in the area. And these are some photos of some birdhouses I put out last year. Decided to add a whole bunch more birdhouses out in the space where I've got some open land for the bluebirds. And there's different ways to mount them. So the best way is to put them on a pole. So I mentioned before, some birds don't mind a house that swings around a bit in the wind, like chickadees and wrens, but most birds do like something stationary and secure. And so there are different types of poles that you can use to easily mount birdhouses. And these are a couple examples. So this is one. It's not super fancy, but they don't need to be. It is just a straight pole. It's almost like a shepherd's hook, except it doesn't have the hooks on the top. So it's just a square 1/2-inch pole. You can screw it right into the back of the house. It comes with screws and everything. The screws go right through the pole and into the back of the house, and then you can just stick it right into the ground. Super, super simple. Very easy to mount. That's what I have most of my birdhouses on. So this is just called a bluebird pole. That's what we call it here at the store. Super simple bluebird pole. You can use it for bluebird houses or any other types of birdhouses, really, unless you're doing screech owl or wood duck or a woodpecker house that need to be up higher off the ground. The bluebird pole is perfect for mounting your houses. It's about 5 feet tall, so it's the perfect height for the birds. And then we have these too, which are a little bit taller. And I should mention too, with these bluebird poles, these screw into the back of the house. So if you have a house that has a clean out on the back, this won't work for you. But what will is a pole like this. This screws into the bottom of the house. So this is another type of birdhouse pole. It has kind of a fancier look to it. It has a little scroll on it. But how this one works is it comes with a flange that screws into the bottom of a house like this, and then it just sits on top of the pole and it sticks right into the ground. They're super easy to put up. This is an example of a birdhouse that has the clean out on the back. So I couldn't use a bluebird pole. That first very simple bluebird pole, couldn't use that to attach to this house. This needs something that screws into the bottom because the clean out is in the back. So it all depends on what kind of birdhouse you have and where the clean out is, what kind of pole you need. But we have all that kind of stuff for you here at the store. And here are some bluebird pictures. These are from last year also. This is the male bluebird. They are much brighter than the female. The female's more of a powder blue, but the males are a really, really bright, almost like cerulean blue, especially when the light hits them. They're just super gorgeous. But you can see them starting to check out nesting sites. And here's a male eastern bluebird sitting on top of one of those bluebird houses. So now is absolutely the time of the year to make sure your bluebird houses are all cleaned out and ready to go. Now, if you've got bluebird houses out, you might notice these birds, once they start coming back into the area, are checking it out. These are tree swallows. They're another bird that is blue in color, but they have the bright white breast. They fly around throughout the fields and will grab insects right out of the air. So they're another really neat bird to have around. If you've got the habitat that bluebirds like, which is that wide open space without a lot of trees interspersed with it, you might get yourself some tree swallows as well. They'll go into bluebird houses too. Check out woods for activity from woodpeckers starting to excavate their nesting sites. You might see trees with big pileated woodpecker holes. This is an example of a tree that was really decimated that I saw recently by a pileated woodpecker. They make large rectangular holes in trees. Other woodpeckers will make small circular holes in trees, but you can tell you have a pileated woodpecker when there is really large holes in the tree. And you can kind of see it here. The ground was just covered in wood chips from the woodpecker going crazy. So it doesn't take long for them to do a lot of damage to a tree, but they're also doing this kind of activity this time of the year to excavate their own nesting sites. And here is an example of that. This was a picture taken by Mark over at Tinker Nature Park. And you can see there's the pileated woodpecker clinging onto the side of the tree. And if you look above its head, there's wood chips just flying. So that bird is excavating its nesting site. And you can kind of see here too in the picture how it's a rectangular hole. It's a long rectangular hole. It's not a small circular hole. And that's how you know it's a pileated woodpecker. You can see it better here from this picture. But another woodpecker to be on the lookout for is a migratory species called the yellow-bellied sapsucker. So we talk about woodpeckers quite a bit. And people send in the pictures of the woodpeckers quite a bit. They come to feeders all the time. But the one woodpecker you're not likely to see at your bird feeders is this one. So this is called the yellow-bellied sapsucker. They are migratory. Sometimes you can find them here in the winter, but now's a good time to start looking for them. They do have that yellow wash on their belly. The males will have red underneath their throat, like this picture here. So keep an eye out for them. And if you start to see little rows of holes in your trees, that's evidence of a yellow-bellied sapsucker. So they don't make huge holes in trees like the pileated woodpecker does. They make small straight lines of holes. So you might see that in some of your trees, or you'll see it when you're out hiking. That is from a yellow-bellied sapsucker. So they'll make these lines of holes in trees. The sap will start to flow out of there, and they'll drink that as the sap flows through the tree. It also attracts insects, which they will eat too. So it's kind of like a twofer. Right now is the time when goldfinches are starting to actually turn gold. Goldfinches are here year-round, but they kind of a drab, like an olive, kind of grayish, brownish color in the winter. And they're starting to molt into their bright gold feathers. So this is an example here of a molting American goldfinch. And it's only a matter of time before they turn that full, bright gold. And this is a picture Bob sent in about a year ago of the American goldfinch. So that had just turned gold. So over the next couple weeks, you'll probably see that molting activity. You'll see their feathers starting to go from very drab gray to more of this bright yellow. So it's an exciting time of the year. Another bird to be on the lookout for in your backyards or when you're out in the woods are what are called brown creepers. So here's a picture of a brown creeper. They blend in super well with the sides of trees, with the barks of trees. And they're called a creeper because they creep up the tree looking for insects. So brown creepers are definitely around. Eastern phoebes, we saw an eastern phoebe last week on our bird walk at Tinker Nature Park, and this is a picture of one, what they look like. This is a type of flycatcher, and they are coming back to the area as well. They're a migratory bird that is starting to make its appearance back in town. Now is also an exciting time of the year when what's called the American woodcock, that's this bird right here, will start doing its mating rituals, and they have a very elaborate what's called the sky dance. The American woodcock is technically a shorebird, but they live in the woods. They blend in super well, so you really don't see them unless you're right up on them. But this is the time of the year where at dusk you can start hearing their calls. They have what's called a peent call. It sounds like a very nasally peent. And they'll make that call, and then they will start their mating flight. And what they do, this is a little diagram of it, at dusk, they will start flying up from usually the fields. So they like a habitat that has woods, or that is fields surrounded by woods. So they can kind of hang out in the woods during the day. And then at night, they'll go out into the fields. They'll make that peent call. And then they start this elaborate flight where they start off from the ground, and then they start in a spiral motion, flying up into the air as far up as 300 feet. And then they do a zigzag motion back down to the ground to try to impress their mates. So this is the type of habit you can look for this time of the year. They've been actually doing this and will continue to do so throughout the month of April, especially early April. So now's a good time to look for this kind of behavior. And if you're in Rochester, there's different groups that have walks and trips to look for this kind of a thing. So really, really cool behavior happening now. Some other birds to be on the lookout for. Here's some migrants that are rolling in. Northern mockingbird, sometimes they are here during the winter. I saw one or two over the winter this year, but in general, they're going to start coming back in larger numbers. Northern mockingbirds are known to come to oriole feeders here and there once you put your oriole feeders up, so are catbirds, which will make their appearance in general later on this month. But northern mockingbird are a pretty large bird. They're kind of slim with a long tail, but when they're in flight, you can see these bright white patches on their wings. That's a really good indication that you've got yourself a northern mockingbird. So be on the lookout for them. And they sing a lot, like their name suggests. They will mimic the calls of other birds, and they tend to repeat them 3 times. So they'll sing one song 3 times in a row, then move on to a new song, which they will sing 3 times in a row. So they have this really long repertoire of songs. Killdeer are back in the area. This is another shorebird like the American woodcock, but the killdeer you can actually find by the shore. They like any kind of muddy flats, that kind of thing. The sides of ponds, the sides of streams are a good place to look for killdeer, or even parking lots. They are known to nest right in the middle of parking lots. They will just lay their eggs right there. So even if you're in a big plaza, keep your ears open for killdeer because you might just see them as easily there as you would by the shore. So here's the killdeer back in the area. Meadowlarks are coming back too, although their numbers are really, really low. This is one of those birds that is in big declines. This is a grassland bird, and grassland habitat is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And so is the population of eastern meadowlark. That being said, they are back in the area and coming back into the area. They're a type of blackbird, but they don't look like it, but they are in that blackbird family. And you can find them by open areas. So they do like grassland habitat. Farms are a good place to look for them. And this is a good example of what they do. They'll perch on a post or a phone line. If there's some shrubs or trees that are poking out of a grassland area, they'll perch on top of there and sing their song. So they're coming back as well. Pretty special thing to see if you see an eastern meadowlark, because they are definitely one of the species that are in decline. Song sparrows, though, are not, and they are coming back in the area. They've been back for a few weeks now, and they're starting to really sing. So like their name suggests, they sing quite a bit. They're known to perch on top of a tree or shrub and just sing their little hearts out. So keep your ears open for song sparrow because they are definitely back in the area. And we'll start to see the first warblers of the season. These are 3 of our early migratory warblers. Well, they're all migratory. All of our warblers are, but there are 3 of our early migrants, I guess I should say, that we'll start to see in the area. And this is one you might get at your feeders, especially this time of the year as they're first coming back in the area and insects are scarce, especially if you put out mealworms. Keep your eyes open for pine warbler. Pine warbler will eat mealworms. They'll sometimes come to feeders with sunflower hearts. So they're this yellowish bird here with the 2 what are called white wing bars. Those are the white streaks on their wings. But they are going to be back in the area any day soon. They start coming back in early April. Same as this little guy. This is called a palm warbler. Pretty yellow overall, but then they have that rusty colored cap on the top of their head. And then probably our most common warbler that you will see, especially if you go out birding, the yellow-rumped warbler will start making its appearance this month also. It's called the yellow-rumped warbler because it has this little yellow patch on its rump area, and then sometimes visible, sometimes not, depending on the view you're getting, is the little yellow patch on the top of its head and the yellow wash on its sides. So yellow-rumped warbler we'll start to see this month also, which is very exciting. It's a sign of spring. And then keep your eyes open for mason bees. It is getting close to be mason bee time. Usually I see my mason bees starting to emerge mid-April or so. I want to say it was around the 12th of April or so last year. But it's because it's been mild, this is something you might see emerging earlier. So it's not like a bird that has to still make its long migration thousands and thousands of miles. If we have a very mild winter, we might start to see insects emerging earlier, and mason bees would be one of those. So if you've got your mason bee houses out, keep an eye out for them to start to emerge, and you know that they're emerging when the little caps that were covered up with mud have been chewed away, and that's how you know that there's some activity, that they're leaving. And if you are lucky enough, you can see their little heads poking out as they start to emerge. So on a nice, warm, sunny day, keep your eyes on your mason bee houses, and if you see a bunch of activity, a bunch of flying around them, you know that your bees are emerging. And this is what a mason bee looks like. They're a really great pollinator for gardens, especially for those early spring blooms. They do a lot of pollination of fruit trees as well. They're just a small native bee that we have around. They're very, very docile. You don't have to worry about them stinging you. And if you're looking for a way to attract more pollinators to your garden, a mason bee house is a fabulous way to do that. So we do have mason bee houses in stock that you can put in your garden to help attract them. And what they are, it's a place for the females to lay their eggs. So they'll lay their eggs inside the house, or inside these little tubes. They'll cap it off with mud, and they keep doing that until these tubes are completely full. And that is where they will stay all summer, all fall, all winter. And then in the spring, they emerge and they pollinate the garden, and they do the whole process over again. So these are some of the tunnels from my backyard. Actually, I pulled this out of my mason bee house, and you can see all of the little caps, all the mud that was capped off, and you can see when they started to emerge, you can see all those little chew marks as they were leaving the house. So, and here's, this is my mason bee house, one of my mason bee houses for my backyard, a little picture there. But thank you guys for watching. That is everything I have prepared for you today. If you have questions or comments, definitely throw them in there. We are going to be doing an in-person class on Saturday morning, so we will not be having a live stream on that day. We're going to be giving a bluebirds class over at Whitehaven Nature Park. So if you are in the Rochester area, absolutely come out. That's going to be at 10 o'clock. And like I said, we still have plenty of eclipse things. So you still have about a week to get all ready for the eclipse. We have a ton of glasses. We have more of the what are called the solar snap kits coming in today, which are the film that you can put over your cell phone in order to take pictures of the eclipse. We have more of those coming in today. And so we have all that kind of stuff ready for you. We also have telescopes if you're getting into astronomy or anything like that. So we are eclipse ready here, and we've got things for you if you're looking for them eclipse wise. Mary Beth, this is the comment from Mary Beth that I started with earlier. It says, "So nice to hear the birds before dawn again. Means spring is coming." Yes. The cardinals are singing a lot. The song sparrows, the Carolina wrens have been nonstop. And it's really fun that they're starting to go after the nesting material as well and check out those nesting sites. Bob is on and says, "I had some bluebirds checking out my birdhouse yesterday." That is awesome. He also says seeing a lot of goldfinches, house finches, and a few pine siskins and a few purple finches. Also song sparrows under the feeders. That's awesome. So he is getting the song sparrow, this little guy here, underneath the feeders. So keep an eye out for them underneath your feeders. They don't tend to perch on the feeders necessarily, but like Bob's seeing, that's not uncommon this time of the year, is the song sparrows cleaning up underneath the feeders. Joan says, "Do the mason bee houses really work? I'd love to try it." In general, yeah, I've heard from some people that have said they never got any, but in general, I get them all the time. You just put out the house, the bees will find it. I think the people that don't have success with them are the people that have their yards sprayed. So you don't want to do any kind of spraying like that. Will just kill off any kind of insects you have. The ones you don't want will be killed off, but it'll kill off everything else, including the little mason bees and the butterflies. So definitely want to stay away from sprays. But yeah, absolutely, they work. It's super simple. You just hang them up. If you can have them in the sun, they like that. But it's a really good way to attract some native pollinators to your yard. Ed says, "Wondering when a good time to change out the tubes and clean out my mason bee house." Very good question. So the reason that I had this picture here, what I did, we do have some mason bee houses that have these compartments that you can just pull out. So if you look at this house here, there's all the tunnels, but then around them is this little kind of plastic housing here. So what I did is I pulled out my old one. This was the old one, and then I replaced it with a new one. I would do that now. Now would be a good time to pull out the tubes. You want to kind of do it before they emerge or as they're emerging, so they don't start laying more eggs in them. Another thing I've done in the past, as long as you can keep a close eye on it, is I've taken my tubes like this out, and then I put them in one location and put a new set of tubes in another location. Or if I really want to get rid of all of them, if they're kind of gross and I don't want them to reuse them. Another thing I've done, if I'm home for the day and I know I can kind of monitor it, is I've put the used tubes that still have the bees in them in one of those pop-up insect houses, like the pop-up butterfly houses where you can raise butterflies. And as the bees emerge, I let them out, but that way you don't get new ones coming in. So that's another thing I've done to kind of do some maintenance. So it's just a couple of ideas there, but now's a good time if you can pull out the tubes easily. If you can't, if they're glued into the house, I would wait until they start to emerge, and then I would pull out those tubes to replace. Kimberly has the same kind of questions. Do you clean the bee houses after they emerge? Sometimes, yeah. It's something definitely you want to look inside and see if there's any spider webs or things like that. Sometimes spiders get in there and will predate on the bees and on the larvae. So if you have any kind of webbing in there, I will pull them out and clean them. I tend not to clean them out every year unless I need to. I kind of inspect them and see how they look. But you can clean the bee houses out after they emerge. So keep a close eye on it. You don't have to 100%, but if things have gotten in there, I would definitely clean them out. And we do have just the little tunnels too. If you're looking for just the cardboard tunnels, the tubes, we have some of those too. We have replacements if you're looking for those. Lynn is on and says, my finches are yellowing up. So Lynn has some goldfinches that are turning gold, probably look like this. So they are molting and they are starting to turn that bright gold color, which is a lot of fun. Hill DG says, hi Liz, my first bluebird nest of the season has been started, and I also have seen the meadowlarks back in our field too. I'm hoping the tree swallows will make it back here again this year. They probably will. They most likely will. When I was cleaning out all my birdhouses, I had more tree swallow nests than anything else. I had lots of tree swallows last year, so they seem to be doing quite well. But that's great to hear that your first bluebird nest of the season has started. So it is that time of the year. It looks like that's everybody's comments and questions for the day. We'll be back on Tuesday live with another live stream. Saturday, like I said, we are doing an in-person class about bluebirds, and we will have a rebroadcast on for you on Saturday, just not a live stream. So until then, everybody have a great week. If you're looking for eclipse stuff, absolutely come on in. And if you watch the Saturday live stream where we had Scott Feibush on there, he recommended, as far as if you're a photographer and taking photos, to take photos and video of the scene around you. That a lot of people will have videos and photos of the eclipse itself, but people tend not to take the crowd photos or the audio of what's going on. We're super curious about how it's going to affect the birds and wildlife. So if you can take any kind of pictures or video, absolutely send them in. We would love to be able to do kind of a recap of what happened during the eclipse. We'd love to show that to everybody. So I know a few of us here at the store are going to do it. We'll have videos and photos to share, but absolutely, please send them in to us. We would love to see how the animals react during this once in a lifetime event for us here. So a couple more comments here. Serpentina says, I've noticed so many more goldfinches and more bluebirds this year. That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, bluebirds are increasing in their populations, especially as over time people have given them more nesting cavities with birdhouses and things like that. So they've made a really good rebound. They were in declines for a long time, but they are coming back. So that's wonderful. And Kimberly says, thanks. You are very, very welcome. We will talk to you soon. Everybody enjoy the amazing eclipse on April 8th, and we'll be back on the 9th with a live stream. A little bit of a recap of that, and we might have some videos to show by then. We'll see what we have prepared for you by then, but we'll be back live next Tuesday. So everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.